He'll act like he doesn't care, like your silence doesn't bother him, like your absence is just space he's comfortable with. But let me tell you something. He feels it. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but the moment you stop giving him your attention, the moment you stop chasing, explaining, waiting, that's when everything starts to shift. At first, he plays it cool, acts unaffected, maybe even posts like he's thriving without you. But what's actually happening? The silence you leave behind starts to echo. The lack of your presence starts to burn. He doesn't show it, not yet. But inside, it's driving him insane. Why? Because he never expected you to walk away. He thought you'd always be there, just one message away, ready to forgive, ready to try again. But this time, you're done negotiating your worth. This time, you didn't leave to teach him a lesson. You left because you learned yours. And the second he realizes you're not coming back, that you're no longer waiting for him to care, that's when the pretending stops. That's when the breakdown begins. Because nothing haunts a man more than the woman who stopped needing his love to feel complete. You ever been in that situation where a guy is acting like he doesn't care? He's cold in his replies. He takes hours to text back. He shrugs off moments that should feel intimate. And you're sitting there wondering, is he just not into me? Or worse, am I imagining the connection we had? Let me tell you something that most people won't say. Indifference is often a performance, not the truth. See, a lot of guys have been conditioned to believe that showing too much emotion makes them weak. They've been told, either directly or through experience, that vulnerability is dangerous. So what do? They put on this poker face. They detach. They act like they don't feel much. And the longer they keep up that act, the more convincing it starts to look. But let's break that down. If someone truly doesn't care, they don't have to pretend. There's no show to put on. There's no text they're purposefully ignoring. There's no calculated distance. True indifference is quiet. It doesn't need to prove itself. But when a guy is acting like he doesn't care, when he's going out of his way to be cold or nonchalant or distant, it's usually because he cares too much. And caring terrifies him. He might care, but he doesn't want to feel out of control. So he keeps a lid on it. He plays it cool. He tries to make it look like he's unaffected, because if he shows you how much he actually wants you, it opens him up to the possibility that you don't want him the same way. That risk, that fear of rejection, of being seen, of being vulnerable, it paralyzes him. Now, here's where it starts to get interesting. That act, that I don't care facade. It only works as long as you keep playing into it. The moment you stop trying to decode his coldness, the moment you stop chasing clarity from someone who won't give it, that's when everything shifts. Because the performance only works if it gets an audience. When he pretends he doesn't care and you're still texting, still checking in, still hoping, it gives him the illusion that he's in control. But the moment you stop showing up for the act, when you step back and say, I'm not engaging in this performance anymore, that's when the silence starts screaming at him. Suddenly, he's not hearing from you. He's not getting that validation. He's not being reminded that you're still in orbit around him. And all those feelings he's been pushing down, they start rising fast. That's when he begins to spiral, because the comfort of you always being there, even just emotionally, is gone. And now he has to face the question, did I really not care? Or did I just convince myself it was safer to act like I didn't? That's what drives him insane. Not the fact that you pulled away, but that he finally has to confront what he's been avoiding. He can't keep pretending when your absence removes the stage altogether. And look, I'm not saying this to justify someone who's playing games or to romanticize someone emotionally unavailable. I'm saying this so you stop taking his coolness at face value. So you stop internalizing his distance as your failure. It's not about your worth. It's about his emotional capacity. And a lot of people don't have the tools or the courage to meet someone on an emotionally honest level. But here's where your power is. You don't need to expose him. You don't need to call him out or ask him what's wrong or try to pull emotions out of someone who's burying them. You just need to stop feeding the illusion. You stop giving energy to a connection that refuses to show up with the same honesty you bring. That's not being harsh. That's being aligned, because you deserve someone whose care isn't a performance. It's a presence. Someone who doesn't make you guess or second guess. Someone who's brave enough to say, yes, I care. Yes, I'm scared, but I still want to try. Until then, let him pretend. Eventually, the silence will be louder than anything you could say. And that performance, it will start to eat away at him. Because the truth is, the second you stop watching his act, he starts losing control of the script. When a guy acts like he doesn't care, don't rush to believe the performance. There's a difference between what he shows and what he feels. And often, the quietest message you can send is also the most powerful. See, what really starts to drive him insane isn't your frustration, your attempts to talk it out, or your emotional texts at midnight. It's your absence. It's the moment you stop showing up the way you used to. That's what echoes. That's what makes him pay attention. Because up until now, he's gotten used to a certain rhythm. He's gotten used to you being there. Maybe not physically all the time, but emotionally. You've been consistent, you've been available, you've been thoughtful, responsive, caring. Even when he was distant, you'd reach out. Even when he gave mixed signals, you'd try to decode them. You were holding the emotional thread between you both, tying the relationship together, even when he didn't do his part. But here's the thing. We teach people how to treat us, not with our words, but with our actions. And when someone keeps pulling away and still gets your time, your energy, your care, they learn that they don't have to meet your needs to still keep access to your heart. So he keeps pretending he doesn't care because he hasn't had to deal with the consequences of that. He hasn't had to feel the emptiness that comes when someone really walks away. That is it until you go quiet, until you stop texting first, until you stop double checking if he's okay, until you stop keeping the connection alive when he's done nothing to water it. And that silence, it starts getting louder, much louder than any words you could say. Because now something's missing, something that made him feel important. Even if he didn't act like it, your energy mattered to him. It filled a space in his life, even if he took it for granted. And now that space is empty. And here's what's interesting. When a woman pulls away, not out of anger, but out of peace, that's when it hits different. It's not a tantrum. It's not a power move. It's not a game. It's a calm decision that says, I'm not going to keep fighting for someone who isn't fighting for me. And when a man senses that shift, when he feels the absence, not just of your body, but of your presence, your light, your energy, it starts to drive him crazy. Because now he has to sit with himself. And when you're not there, the silence reflects things back to him. He starts wondering, why did she stop reaching out? Is she seeing someone else? Did she finally move on? And underneath all of that is the question he's most afraid to ask. Did I just lose something real because I was too afraid to show I cared? That's the moment where his pretending starts to unravel. Because pretending not to care only works when the other person still does. It's only effective when you're still chasing, still hoping, still trying to prove yourself. But when you stop, when you detach, the performance loses its power. The silence becomes a mirror, and he's forced to see that maybe, just maybe, you were the one holding all the value all along. Now, this doesn't mean you should pull away just to make him miss you. It's not about analogy strategy. It's about alignment. You're not disappearing because you want him to chase. You're stepping back because you're done investing in someone who's not showing up for you. And that shift from reaction to intention is magnetic, not because you're trying to manipulate an outcome, but because you're honoring your self-worth. When he feels that difference, it creates a kind of urgency. It shakes him out of the illusion that you'll always be there, no matter how little he gives. It forces him to reckon with the possibility that he didn't just lose your attention, he lost access to a rare kind of connection. And that's what starts to drive him insane. So don't underestimate the power of your silence. Don't second guess the strength in your distance. Because while he's pretending he doesn't care, your absence is doing the talking. And trust me, it's speaking volumes. Sometimes the loudest thing you can say is nothing at all. He may seem completely unbothered, like he's totally fine without you. You think to yourself, how is he not affected? How does he just carry on like nothing happened? But here's the truth. Emotionally unavailable men aren't unaffected. They're just disconnected. They don't always register emotion in real time like you might. Instead, they respond to loss, not presence. They respond when the supply stops, not when it's flowing. When you're giving your energy, showing care, initiating conversations, giving reassurance, constantly making space for him, it feeds a certain emotional comfort for him. It strokes his ego, it makes him feel wanted, it creates this illusion that he can have closeness without responsibility. So he sits in it, he gets used to it, and eventually he takes it for granted. You'll see this behavior where he doesn't initiate much, he doesn't go deep emotionally, he keeps things casual. Maybe he even pushes you away at times, but he still lets you stay close enough to feel seen by you, close enough to enjoy the warmth of your emotional investment without ever having to step into true vulnerability himself. But here's what no one tells you. Emotionally unavailable men get addicted to the attention you give. They might not show it, they might even act like they're above it, but that steady stream of validation, that energy you bring into their life, the consistency, the care, the emotional labor, they feel it, even if they pretend not to. And when that energy disappears, they notice. And they might not say it out loud, but internally, it shakes them. It disturbs the emotional status quo they've built for themselves. The illusion that they didn't need anyone, especially not you. The moment you stop showing up for him in the way you always did, not out of spite, not to manipulate, but because you've realized your needs matter too, it creates a vacuum. And that vacuum doesn't just feel empty, it feels threatening, because now for the first time he's alone with his own emotional neglect. Now he has to face the version of himself that doesn't have access to you. And that's where the insanity begins. He might try to stay cool, keep the act going, but inside, there's a shift. Wait, she's really not reaching out? She didn't reply this time? She didn't ask how I was. That discomfort grows. At first it's subtle, a passing thought. Then it starts nagging. And before long, it becomes an obsession. Because now it's not just about you, it's about what your absence means. It's about the mirror you've held up to his behavior. A mirror that shows him that love doesn't stick around forever when you don't show up for it. But let me be clear, this doesn't happen when you try to force it. You can't pretend to pull away. You can't fake detachment just to get a reaction. Because emotional unavailability is very good at sniffing out games. This only works when it's real, when you're genuinely done with giving more than you receive, when you're no longer willing to beg for breadcrumbs, when your self-worth has finally outgrown the pattern. And when that happens, when your energy is gone, when your focus is back on you, when you're no longer entertaining a connection that doesn't meet your emotional standards, he feels it like a withdrawal. It's like someone flipped a switch and the power went out. And suddenly, he's left sitting in the dark, trying to remember where he last saw the light. That's when he spirals. That's when the I don't care mask starts to crack. He'll reach out, sometimes in small ways, a message, a meme, a hey, how have you been? Anything to gauge if he still has access. If you respond quickly or emotionally or with any trace of the old dynamic, he'll relax. He'll feel like he's still got it. But if you don't, if you stay grounded, if you give him presence without pursuit, he won't know what to do with it. Because now he's in unfamiliar territory, a space where he no longer gets to be passive. He has to make a decision. Stay emotionally shut down and risk losing something meaningful, or step up and be honest about what he actually feels. That's the crossroads. And a lot of men, when faced with that moment, do shift, because pain has a funny way of waking us up. When he realizes he's lost something he never fully valued until it was gone, it creates movement. Sometimes it's too late, sometimes it's exactly what he needed. But either way, it's not your job to stick around and wait for that awakening. Your job is to protect your energy, set the standard, and walk when you're not being met. Let the silence do the heavy lifting. Because if he was ever truly connected to you, the real you, not just the comfort you provided, your absence will echo louder than anything you could ever say. And that echo is what drives him insane. You know what's fascinating? The more secure you are in your worth, the more his detachment turns into anxiety. It's not about playing games or manipulating anyone. It's about standing so firmly in who you are that it completely shifts the dynamic. You see, when a woman knows her value, she doesn't chase someone who's acting cold or distant. She doesn't get pulled into that spiral of over-analyzing every text, every silence, every dry response. She notices it, sure. But instead of trying harder, she pauses, she observes, and most importantly, she protects her energy. That pause is everything. Most people don't know how powerful it is to simply not react. We live in a world where people think if someone pulls away, you have to run after them or try to fix it or prove your value, so they'll finally see you. But the opposite is true. When you stop trying to convince someone of your worth and just own it, that's when things start shifting. Now, a guy might act like your absence doesn't bother him. He might carry on, post stories, stay quiet, act unfazed. But deep down, he notices. And more importantly, he starts to feel it. Because if you're the kind of woman who brought peace, connection, presence, someone who genuinely showed up with value, your absence leaves a mark. You weren't just another person he talked to. You were someone who made him feel something. But while you were there, he was too distracted by the illusion of control. He thought he could keep 1 foot in and 1 foot out. He thought you'd wait. But when you stop waiting, when you start focusing on yourself, when you actually let go instead of pretending to, it shakes something in him. He starts wondering, wait, why isn't she affected? Why hasn't she reached out? And the most powerful moment is when he realizes you didn't leave to provoke a reaction. You left because you were done entertaining confusion. That's the key. When you're secure in your worth, your energy changes. You don't need to say, I'm walking away because I deserve better. You just live it. You go to the gym. You build your career. You connect with people who light you up. You reclaim your peace. And slowly, the version of you that once tolerated his indifference becomes someone he no longer has access to. Now, here's where it really starts to drive him insane. Not because you're being cold or vindictive, but because you're unbothered. You're not angry, you're not bitter, you're just done. And that calm detachment is more powerful than any emotional plea or confrontation, because he expected you to fight, to cling, to hold on a little longer. And when you didn't, it made him confront something he's been running from, the fear that maybe he messed up. This is when the internal shift happens for him. That anxiety he was trying to avoid, by pretending not to care, it creeps in. Because now there's a void. You've stopped filling the space with your effort. You've stopped reaching out first. You've stopped reminding him of what he had. And for the first time, he's left with just himself. No reassurance, no attention, no validation. That silence starts echoing. And it's not the silence that hurts him, it's what it means. It means you've moved on. It means he doesn't get to rely on your presence while giving the bare minimum. It means that the thing he took for granted is no longer available. And for someone who thought he was in control, that realization is deeply unsettling. He'll pretend he doesn't care until your peace becomes more powerful than his pride. That's the moment everything flips. Because now, it's not you trying to prove you're enough. It's him wondering why he didn't treat you like you were. That's what keeps him up at night. Not your anger, not your silence, your evolution. So never underestimate the quiet power of knowing your worth. You don't need to scream it. You don't need to post quotes about it. Just live it. Move in it. Let it radiate in how you speak, how you respond, or don't. Because when a woman steps fully into her value, the game ends. And the man who once acted indifferent, he starts to feel the loss in ways he never expected. And that is what drives him insane. Some people mistake silence for strength. They think that when a guy goes quiet, becomes distant, or acts like he doesn't care, it's a sign of emotional control. But in reality, more often than not, it's confusion. It's emotional immaturity. It's someone who hasn't built the tools to navigate real feelings, so they just shut down instead. You see, when a man starts to feel something deeper, when he begins to realize that you might actually mean something to him, he doesn't always step forward with clarity and courage, especially if he's not used to emotional vulnerability. Instead, he retreats. He acts cold. He puts on this mask like he's unbothered, because that's easier than facing what's really going on inside. He convinces himself and tries to convince you that he doesn't care, that this doesn't affect him. But that's not strength. That's fear in disguise. What's happening in these moments is that he's been triggered by a feeling he doesn't fully understand. Maybe it's fear of intimacy. Maybe it's past heartbreak. Maybe it's insecurity. But the key thing is, when these men pull away, it's not because you did something wrong. It's because something inside them isn't ready to be honest. And here's the catch. If you don't know this, you'll personalize his behavior. You'll chase clarity. You'll try to get him to talk. You'll over-explain yourself. You'll try to fix the situation, thinking that if you just say the right thing or give him enough reassurance, he'll open back up and return to who he was at the beginning. But that's where you lose your power. Because now, instead of watching his behavior and responding accordingly, you're trying to manage his emotions for him. And that's not your job. Let me say something important. When someone doesn't know how to deal with their feelings, their default behavior will always look like detachment. But underneath that detachment is a war, a conflict between what they feel and what they're ready to handle. And often, they're not even aware of that conflict themselves. That's why they act hot and cold. That's why they come close, then disappear. It's not calculated, it's chaotic. Now, this is where most people get stuck. They think, if I can just show him that I'm safe, if I can just be patient and wait it out, he'll come around. But this mentality doesn't just trap you, it enables him. Because instead of being required to grow up emotionally, he now gets the benefit of your consistency without ever having to meet you at your level. And it doesn't matter how amazing you are. If someone doesn't have the emotional maturity to recognize and act on that, your value will be wasted on them. You'll end up exhausting yourself trying to translate your love into a language he doesn't even know how to speak. That's why your power lies in this one truth. Don't chase silence. Respond to it. Don't try to decode his cold behavior. Respect yourself enough to step back and let him face his own mess. Because the moment you stop trying to fix it and you just allow space, not out of anger, not to manipulate him, but because you recognize your own worth, that's when the silence gets loud. That's when he starts to notice your absence. That's when he realizes that what he took for granted isn't guaranteed. And in that silence, one of two things happens. He either grows, and both answers are a blessing. Because if he grows, you get a man who's now owning his emotional space and choosing to show up fully. And if he ghosts, you get the gift of clarity. You stop wasting time on someone who was never equipped to love you in the way you deserve. So many people are out there right now playing roles they don't even realize they've been assigned. They think they're being strong by shutting down. They think not expressing care makes them powerful. But real strength isn't about hiding your emotions. It's about being able to face them, understand them, and communicate them with honesty. Until he does that, silence isn't strength. It's a symptom of emotional immaturity. And the last thing you should do is shrink yourself, mute your needs, or play small just to make him comfortable with where he's at. You don't need to be louder. You don't need to explain more. You don't need to make him see your value. Just let him sit in the silence he created. Let him wrestle with the discomfort of your distance. Let him realize that you're not the one who needs to chase love. You're the one who gets chosen by someone emotionally ready to receive it. Because the minute he starts feeling the emptiness where your energy used to be, that's when pretending not to care stops working. That's when silence stops feeling powerful and starts driving him insane. You see, the real power, the power that changes everything, isn't in trying to get him to care. It's not in sending the perfect text or dropping the right hint or waiting just long enough to reply so that maybe he misses you a little. That kind of control, it's not real, it's fragile, and it's exhausting. Because deep down, you know it's built on the hope that he'll finally realize your value. And that's the trap. The moment things shift, really shift, is when you stop needing him to care at all. Not as a tactic, not as a strategy, not to get a reaction, but because something inside you clicks and you realize you deserve more than confusion. You deserve more than silence, more than mixed signals, more than someone who only shows up when you start pulling away. And I know how hard that is. Because maybe part of you still believes that if you just hang in there long enough, if you're patient, if you give him space, eventually he'll come around. That one day he'll wake up and see what was right in front of him. But here's the truth. A man doesn't see your value because you wait quietly in the background hoping he'll notice. He sees your value when you walk with it. When you don't offer it to someone who treats it like it's optional. There comes a moment when you stop trying to teach someone how to love you and you simply embody what being loved looks like by how you love yourself. And that is when the game changes. That's when he starts to unravel. Because now he's not dealing with the same version of you who needed his validation to feel whole. He's dealing with someone who knows she's enough, with or without his attention. And suddenly, his indifference doesn't work anymore. It doesn't control you. It doesn't confuse you. It doesn't make you chase him. You're not reacting anymore. You're responding with distance, with calm, with clarity. And that calm, that's the part that drives him insane because he expected the old version of you to be there, the one who'd reach out first, the one who'd wait by the phone, the one who'd settle for crumbs. But now you're not chasing, you're choosing. You're not waiting for his potential. You're watching his actions. And when they fall short, You don't argue. You exit. Here's the irony. When you stop needing him to care, that's when he starts to, because he starts feeling something he's never felt before in your dynamic. Loss, and not the kind of loss that's loud or dramatic, the kind that's quiet but permanent, the kind that makes him lie awake at night wondering how he went from being everything you thought about to someone you don't even call anymore. And I'm not saying he'll come running back every time. Some guys never grow. Some guys only feel the loss and still don't step up. And that's okay, because the point isn't to get him back. The point is that by the time he realizes what he had, you don't need him to. You're not bitter. You're not cold. You're just done. You're done negotiating for someone's effort. Done proving your worth. Done trying to make someone care who only ever pretended not to. Because you finally realized the love you were begging for from him, you could give to yourself in full. And here's what's beautiful about that moment. You don't walk away angry. You walk away peaceful. You stop trying to get closure. You stop checking his social media. You stop imagining him waking up one day and regretting everything. Because whether he does or doesn't, that's no longer your concern. Living your life hoping to be someone's regret, you're living your life being your own standard. He may still pretend not to care. He may still act like it never touched him. But behind closed doors, when he sees you happy, unbothered, glowing without him, it stings. Not because you're trying to hurt him, but because you've finally shown him what it looks like when someone truly moves on. And if he does come back, let it be because he's grown. Let it be because he's ready to meet you at your level. Not because you're lonely, not because you miss the idea of him, not because you're afraid of starting over, but only because he sees your value now and he's willing to show up like a man who won't let it go again. Until then, hold your standard. Let him wonder. Let him wrestle with the silence he created. Let him feel the weight of what he took for granted. Because when you no longer need him to care, that's when he finally does.